Everyone thinks they know who is going to win the 2026 World Cup. Some people say Argentina will do it again. Some say France are simply too strong. Others believe England finally have their golden generation. But there is one team hiding in plain sight. A team that has never won the World Cup. A team carrying one of the greatest players in football history. A team that might be entering this tournament at exactly the right moment. Portugal. And if what former Dutch star Wesley Sneijder said turns out to be true, football could witness one of the most unbelievable endings ever written. Because according to him, Portugal may actually have a better chance of winning the 2026 World Cup than the defending champions Argentina. At first, that sounds crazy. After all, Argentina are the current world champions. They have Lionel Messi. They have experience. They have confidence. And they already know what it takes to go all the way. But then you start looking closer. You start looking at Portugal's squad. You start looking at their depth, their balance, their young stars, their tactical flexibility. And suddenly the idea doesn't seem so ridiculous anymore. In fact, it starts making sense. Because while most football fans are busy arguing about Messi, Mbappé, Bellingham, and Haaland, Portugal have quietly built one of the most complete squads on the planet. A squad filled with players in their prime. A squad filled with leaders. A squad filled with game changers. And standing in the middle of it all is a man who refuses to let time defeat him. Cristiano Ronaldo. Now let's be honest. Nobody expected Ronaldo to still be here. Not like this. Most footballers at his age have already retired. Some become coaches, some become pundits, some disappear completely. But Ronaldo isn't normal. He never has been. For more than 20 years, he has treated football like a personal challenge against reality itself. Every time people say he's finished, he finds a way to come back. Every time people say age has caught him, he scores again. Every time people predict the end, he creates another chapter. And now, somehow, he is preparing for what could be his final World Cup. Think about that for a second. The boy from Madeira, the kid who left home with a dream, the teenager who arrived at Manchester United, the superstar who conquered England, Spain, Italy, and international football, the man who broke almost every scoring record imaginable. Could his final chapter really end with the only trophy he has never won? Because if it does, it won't just be another football story. It will become one of the greatest sporting stories ever told. But before we talk about the dream, we need to talk about reality. And reality is complicated, because Ronaldo might be Portugal's biggest strength, but he could also be their biggest question mark. That sounds strange to say. After everything he's done, after everything he's achieved. But football is ruthless. It doesn't care about your legacy. It doesn't care about your trophies. It only cares about what happens on the pitch today. And recently, something interesting has started happening. Portugal have begun showing signs that they can thrive without Ronaldo. That is not disrespect. That is not criticism. It's simply the evolution of a team. A new generation has arrived. A generation that grew up watching Ronaldo. A generation inspired by him. And now those players are entering their prime. When Portugal played without Ronaldo in certain matches, the football looked different. Faster, more fluid, more unpredictable. The movement increased. The pressing improved. The attacking combinations became harder to defend. And suddenly a question nobody wanted to ask became impossible to ignore. Does Portugal need Ronaldo on the pitch, or do they need Ronaldo as a leader? Because those are two very different things. The answer could determine Portugal's entire World Cup campaign. And that's where manager Roberto Martinez enters the story. Martinez understands the challenge better than anyone. He knows Ronaldo's importance, not just as a player, as a symbol, as a captain, as a mentality monster, the kind of figure whose presence alone can change a dressing room. Young players look at him and instantly raise their standards. They train harder, they focus more, they push themselves further, because when you see a 41-year-old still working like a man possessed, excuses disappear. And that influence matters, especially during a World Cup, because talent alone never wins tournaments. Mentality does. History proves it. Every great champion had talent. But the teams that lift trophies are the teams that survive pressure, the teams that stay calm when everything around them is collapsing. the teams that refuse to panic. Portugal may finally be becoming that kind of team, and that's what makes them dangerous. Very dangerous. Because once you move beyond Ronaldo, you discover something terrifying. This squad has quality everywhere. Not in one position, not in two positions. Everywhere. Start in midfield. Bruno Fernandes, a player capable of changing a match with a single pass, a player who sees opportunities others don't, the type of footballer who can unlock an entire defense in one moment of brilliance. Then there's Bernardo Silva, one of the most intelligent players in world football. He doesn't just play football, he solves football, finding space where none exists, creating angles nobody notices, controlling matches without needing headlines. Together they form one of the strongest midfield partnerships at the tournament. And that's before you even look at the attacking options. Rafael Leão, explosive, fearless, devastating in open space. Defenders hate facing him, because the moment he starts running, panic begins. Then comes João Felix, a player who still feels capable of producing magic at any second, a player whose talent has never been questioned. Only consistency. If he finds form at the right time, Portugal gain another weapon capable of deciding matches. And that's what makes this team so fascinating. They're not dependent on one player anymore. They're built around options, around variety, around flexibility. One game might be won through possession, another through counterattacks, another through individual brilliance. Portugal can adapt, and adaptability wins tournaments. But winning a World Cup isn't just about scoring goals. It's about surviving pressure, surviving mistakes, surviving moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. And that's where Portugal might be stronger than people realize. Because while fans love talking about attackers, World Cups are often decided by defenders. The boring stuff, the ugly stuff, the moments nobody remembers until they change everything. One block, one tackle, one save, one clearance off the line. That's usually the difference between heroes and heartbreak. And Portugal have quietly built one of the strongest defensive units in international football. At the heart of it stands Rúben Dias, a defender who doesn't just stop attacks. He organizes entire defenses. He leads. He commands. He makes everyone around him better. Every great tournament-winning team has a player like that. Someone who brings calm when chaos arrives. Someone who turns panic into control. For Portugal, that player is Dias. Alongside him are defenders capable of matching the best attackers in the world. Players comfortable on the ball, players who understand positioning, players who know how to handle pressure. Because make no mistake, the pressure in a World Cup knockout match is unlike anything else in football. One mistake and your country remembers it forever. One mistake and millions of dreams disappear. The best teams are the teams that can keep their heads when everyone else loses theirs. Portugal have shown signs they can do exactly that. And then there is Nuno Mendes, perhaps one of the most important players in the entire squad. Because modern football isn't won by standing still. It's won through movement, speed, transitions, explosiveness. Nuno Mendes provides all of it. He can defend, he can attack, he can recover impossible situations, he can create chances from nothing. The kind of player coaches dream about having during tournaments. And when you combine him with Portugal's midfield and attack, something interesting happens. Portugal become unpredictable. And unpredictability is a nightmare for opponents. Because how do you prepare for a team that can beat you in 5 different ways? How do you stop a team that doesn't rely on one system? How do you stop a team that can change its identity in the middle of a match? The answer is simple. You don't. You try to survive. And that's exactly why so many people are starting to take Portugal seriously. But if there's one position that could define everything, it's goalkeeper. Because every World Cup eventually creates moments that cannot be planned. Moments where systems stop working. Moments where tactics disappear. Moments where it comes down to one player standing alone. Goalkeeper versus destiny. And Portugal might have one of the best young goalkeepers in the world, Diogo Costa. Remember that name, because tournaments create stars, and goalkeepers often become legends overnight. One save can change history. One penalty stop can change an entire nation's future. Costa has already shown he has that ability, that rare quality, the ability to stay calm while everyone else is losing control. And that's important because World Cups always produce penalty shootouts. Always. No matter how much football changes, no matter how many new tactics appear, eventually somebody ends up standing 12 yards away with the entire world watching. And when that happens, psychology becomes more important than technique. Fear becomes more important than talent. That's where Portugal might have a hidden advantage. Because not only do they have Diogo Costa, they also have some of the most reliable penalty takers in international football. Bruno Fernandes, Cristiano Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva, players who have taken pressure and turned it into routine. Players who understand how to control their emotions when everything is on the line. That matters. A lot more than people realize. Because tournaments are not won by perfect teams. They're won by teams that survive imperfect moments. Portugal are built for those moments. And perhaps that's why their supporters are beginning to believe. Not hope. Believe. Because hope is fragile. Belief is powerful. Hope says maybe. Belief says why not us? Why not now? Why not this team? Why not this tournament? And that's exactly what is happening around Portugal. For years, they entered tournaments carrying expectations. But this feels different. This feels balanced, controlled, dangerous. The spotlight isn't fully on them. The pressure isn't completely overwhelming. Most fans are discussing France, Argentina, England, Brazil, Spain. Portugal are sitting just outside the conversation, watching, waiting, growing stronger. And sometimes that's the perfect position. Because favorites have targets on their backs. Favorites carry expectations. Favorites feel pressure from day one. Portugal don't, at least not in the same way, which means they can focus on football. And that's where things get really interesting. Because if you look at recent World Cup history, almost every champion had one thing in common: momentum. Not necessarily the best squad, not necessarily the biggest stars. Momentum. A feeling, a rhythm. A belief that grows stronger with every victory. France had it, Argentina had it, Germany had it, Spain had it. Once momentum starts building, strange things happen. Players begin performing above their normal level. Confidence spreads, luck appears, small margins start going your way. The tournament begins carrying you forward. Portugal might be one of the teams most capable of building that momentum, because all the ingredients are there: leadership, experience, youth, talent, depth, tactical flexibility, mentality, and maybe most importantly, purpose. Because this tournament means something different for Portugal. For many players, it's another chance to win a World Cup. For Cristiano Ronaldo, it is something else entirely. It is the final chapter, the final mission, the final opportunity. There are no guarantees after 2026, no second chances, no future World Cups waiting around the corner. This is it, the last dance, the final attempt to capture the one trophy missing from a career that already looks impossible. And whether you love Ronaldo or hate him, that storyline is impossible to ignore. Because sports are built on stories, and few stories are bigger than this one. Imagine the scene. The final whistle blows. Portugal have done it. Players collapse to the ground, fans are crying, the world is watching, and standing in the middle of it all is Cristiano Ronaldo, 41 years old, world champion, completing a journey that started more than 2 decades earlier. Would it be one of the greatest endings in sports history? Absolutely. Will it happen? Nobody knows. That's why we watch. That's why the World Cup matters. Because football doesn't care about predictions. Football doesn't care about logic. Football creates miracles. Football creates heartbreak. Football creates moments nobody sees coming. And that's exactly why Portugal are so fascinating heading into 2026. Because they sit somewhere between dream and reality, between possibility and destiny, between history and opportunity. Everything is there: the squad, the manager, the experience, the talent, the leadership, the belief. The only thing missing is proof. And over the next few weeks, the world will find out whether Portugal are merely contenders, or whether they're about to become champions. Because if everything finally clicks, if the stars align, if momentum arrives at exactly the right time, then the football world won't just witness another World Cup winner. It will witness the ending of one of the greatest stories football has ever told. But before you start imagining Portugal lifting the trophy, there's one final question that needs to be answered. A question bigger than tactics, bigger than statistics, bigger than squad depth. Can Portugal handle the moments that break everybody else? Because every World Cup has them. Those moments when the script disappears. Those moments when the favorites panic. Those moments when entire tournaments change in the space of 5 minutes. Think about the biggest World Cup shocks you've ever seen. Nobody predicted them. Nobody saw them coming. Yet somehow they happened. That's football. And that's why the 2026 World Cup could become the most unpredictable tournament we've ever witnessed. 48 teams, more matches, more travel, more pressure, more opportunities for chaos. One injury can change everything. One red card can destroy months of preparation. One deflection can send a giant home. And Portugal know that better than anyone. Because for decades they've lived on both sides of football's cruelty. They've experienced the heartbreak, the near misses, the painful exits, the moments that still haunt fans years later. But they've also experienced glory. They've won trophies. They've survived impossible situations. They've learned how to handle pressure. And sometimes that experience becomes the difference between winning and losing. This team isn't walking into the World Cup hoping to compete. They're walking in believing they belong. That's a massive difference. Because the strongest teams don't ask for permission. They don't wait for validation. They don't need outsiders to believe in them. They create their own confidence. And Portugal finally look like a team that understands that. Look around the squad. There are leaders everywhere. Players who have won league titles, Champions League trophies, international competitions. Players who know exactly what pressure feels like. Players who have already performed on football's biggest stages. That matters when knockout football arrives. Because talent gets you to the tournament. Character wins the tournament. And character is something Portugal have in abundance. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. The thing every football fan secretly wants to know. What happens if Ronaldo actually reaches the final? Imagine the build-up, the headlines, the pressure, the emotion. For months, the football world has debated Messi versus Ronaldo. Who was greater? Who achieved more? Who defined an era? Those arguments have dominated football for almost 20 years. Then Messi won the World Cup. For many people, the debate ended, case closed, finished. But football loves drama. Football loves unexpected twists. And if Ronaldo somehow lifts the World Cup in 2026, the debate won't just return, it will explode. Every television network, every football channel, every podcast, every social media platform, everyone would be talking about it. Because suddenly, football history would have another chapter, another argument, another impossible question. And Ronaldo knows that. Whether he admits it or not, he understands what this tournament represents. This isn't just about winning a trophy. This is about legacy, immortality, the final piece of a puzzle that's been missing for 2 decades. That's why every goal matters, every assist matters, every victory matters. Because every step takes him closer to something that once seemed impossible. And that's what makes Portugal so dangerous. Not just their talent, not just their tactics, their motivation. Motivation is a powerful thing, especially when combined with quality, especially when combined with belief. And right now, Portugal have all 3. But even if Ronaldo never touches the trophy, even if Portugal falls short, even if the dream ends somewhere along the way, this team still deserves respect because they've built something special, something sustainable, something capable of competing with anyone. The future is bright. The present is even brighter. And for the first time in a very long time, Portugal aren't just relying on one superstar to save them. They're relying on a complete football team, a complete football identity, a complete football nation. And that's exactly why so many experts are starting to take them seriously. The scary part? They might still be improving, which means their best football could still be ahead of them. And if that's true, every favorite should be worried. France should be worried, Argentina should be worried, England should be worried, Brazil should be worried, because tournament football isn't about being the most famous team. It's about being the best team at the right moment. And Portugal might be arriving at exactly the right moment. So when the 2026 World Cup finally begins, when the stadiums are packed, when the anthems start playing, when billions of people turn their eyes toward North America, keep watching Portugal. Watch the young stars, watch the veterans, watch the manager, watch the captain. Because one of two things is about to happen. Either we'll witness the final chapter of Cristiano Ronaldo's incredible journey, or we'll witness the greatest ending football has ever produced. And honestly, neither outcome would surprise me anymore. Because this World Cup feels different. This Portugal team feels different. And sometimes that's all history needs. One team, one opportunity, one moment. The rest becomes legend. So now the question goes to you. Can Portugal really win the 2026 World Cup? Can Cristiano Ronaldo complete football's most unbelievable story? Or will another giant stand in their way? Let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe because the road to the 2026 World Cup is only just beginning. More stories, more predictions, more football. And trust me, the best chapters haven't been written yet.